Hey everybody, this is Nicole from Wildflower Valley Farm. Today I am going to be harvesting for the rabbits. I do this pretty much every day, but today I'm going to let y'all walk with me and see how I do that. I basically just forage different weeds and grasses and things like that from around the yard. So come with me and I'll show you how that's done. So almost anything in your yard or your garden is probably going to be safe for your rabbits. Make sure that you can identify everything that you're feeding to them, just to be sure. I'm going to put a link in my description down below for a website that I like to reference just to find out if particular plants are safe or not. It's a great resource. But like I said, almost anything that you're going to find in your yard is more than likely going to be safe. So today I'm going to start in the front yard for my foraging for the rabbits. And as those of you who've watched for a little while on my videos know, I keep some rabbits in this rabbit tractor, and this is what I use to mow the front yard. I currently have 3 in here, a buck and 2 does. And my plan this time around is to try to keep a breeding trio in here for about a month. Then when the does are getting pretty close to time for kindling, I will put them in cages in the back so that they can have nest boxes, and then put a different trio in here so that I can keep mowing with the rabbit tractor. You can kind of see where they've been. They did all of this in just the last 2 days. I am having to move them minimum of 3 times a day right now. I usually move them right before I leave for work in the morning, and again right when I get home, and a 3rd time right before I go to bed. With 3 rabbits in the tractor, they are eating it down pretty close with only moving them twice a day. So I started moving them 3 times. But because it's the front yard, and my front yard butts right up against the road, there are still some places that I can't put the tractor because I don't want them to be too close to the road. So areas like this that is right a corner with the driveway and the mailbox, and then of course this up through here that is just a few feet from the road. I don't like to put the rabbit tractor that close. And there's a ditch here. You can't see it for the tall grass, but there's a ditch here, and of course I can't put the tractor in the ditch. So I normally don't let it get up this tall, but I will come through here and forage and harvest this for the rabbits in the back, and that makes up for the fact that I can't put the tractor here. The only pieces of equipment that you'll need if you're going to forage for your rabbits are a container of some sort, just whatever kind of container you like. I picked this up at Aldi for $5, I think, and I like it better than like a laundry basket because it doesn't have the holes in it, and sometimes your smaller pieces of grass like clover and things like that will fall through from a laundry basket, whereas something like this, they're not going to fall out. The other thing you'll need is a pair of scissors. The stems on some things are too tough to be able to break off with your hands easily. And sometimes you'll want to use scissors, depending on what you're harvesting, just because it makes it look neater to cut it rather than to tear it off with your hand. One of the nice things about foraging for your rabbits is you can use this as just supplemental feed if you want to, and go around your yard, and rather than use a string line trimmer, or we call it a weed eater around here, rather than use a trimmer to go around the edges of things, you can just use your hands and either cut or pull things away, and then use those things to feed to your rabbit. You can also weed your garden like that. You see around these rocks, I've just pulled those weeds away and make a nice clean edge. There's no reason to come back and use my string trimmer for that. And then I get to feed the food to the rabbits. It looked like that, and now it looks like that. Just going through your yard will give you a good variety of different things for your rabbits. Just in this little corner right here, I have clover and dock and grass and dandelion and a little bit of violet. All of those things are edible and perfectly acceptable to be feeding to your rabbits. So when you're just harvesting from your lawn, you really don't have to worry a lot about a lack of variety, unless you're one of those people that treat your lawn with weed killers, in which case you shouldn't be feeding that to your rabbits anyway. But when you're just pulling the weeds from your lawn, there is generally going to be a wide variety of things to feed your rabbits without even having to be picky and go looking for different things. And when my bucket gets full, I will go distribute that to the rabbits. See how far that gets me. I may need to fill it up again. I probably will, because I actually have 2 does that are nursing babies right now, and they will probably get half this bucket just between those 2 does. And then I have 4 other rabbits that I'm going to need to split it up between. So sometimes, depending on which rabbits I'm foraging for, sometimes just filling this bucket up one time is enough for all of them. And sometimes I have to fill it up maybe half full again or completely full again. But this is a good size bucket for my purposes, just because it doesn't take that long to fill it up. And like I said, depending on what I'm filling, sometimes just this one bucket is enough to feed everything. Now keep in mind that this is not a yard maintenance video. I am not an expert on lawn care. Don't come looking at any of my videos for how to maintain your yard. But you can see right up through here where I've been, almost looks like it's been mowed. It's a little taller than some people will mow their yard, but you can definitely tell a difference between this, which is what it looked like before, and this, now that I have been down through here harvesting for the rabbits. Now just a warning, I normally would not recommend that you harvest anything this close to a roadway. In my case, I don't feel uncomfortable with that, because my road is, even though it's inside town here, it is strictly a residential road. There are no businesses on this road. There's only about 5 houses, and this is not a road that is traveled by most people to get to anywhere else either. It's not a cross street. It's just purely a residential street. So there's very little traffic on this street most of the time. And so there's not going to be a lot of runoff from the road like there would normally be on a more heavily traveled roadway. If you do live on the edge of a street that has a lot of traffic, then I do not advise that you harvest this close to the road, because there's going to be runoff from where every car down through there has dripped oil or antifreeze or some other kind of automotive type fluid. Like I said, because there are very few cars up and down my road, I don't feel like that is as much of a concern here. Otherwise, I would not be harvesting this close to the road. So I'm going to go feed this bucket full to the rabbits, And then I'm going to do a walkthrough just to kind of show you some different things that, you know, you may not necessarily have to go looking for, but things that are okay, perfectly okay and safe to feed to your rabbits if you have them in your yard. So this is the massive pile that I am giving these 2 does. One thing you do want to be sure, if you are feeding forage to your rabbits as a primary part of their diet, where it's, you know, the majority of their diet, you will want to make sure you have a wide variety. Don't limit their grass and foraging to just one single type of grass. You want to make sure you have lots of grass and clover and dandelion and things like that in there, especially for these does. Because they are nursing, I'm trying to make sure they get lots and lots of clover because it has a lot of good protein in it. I'm also supplementing them with pellets just because they are nursing babies. I want to make sure that they have all the nutrition that they need. But try to give them a big pile like this every day, and most of the time they eat all of it. Anything they don't eat from the day before, I'll just clean that out and put more in here. Here are some babies. These are the oldest babies. They are a week older than the younger babies. And their eyes are beginning to open and they are moving around. They did have hay in this nest box, but between the 2 mama rabbits, I think they ate a lot of the hay. Because I didn't take any out and it's gone. They've pretty much just left the fur, but these babies are fine. Now that they're getting up and moving around, they don't really need to have hay in there for bedding anyway. It's not necessary. Wouldn't hurt anything if it was there, but it's not necessary. So from that bucket, I was able to feed the 2 does and this rabbit. A pile like this is enough for this rabbit for today, but not quite enough for the rabbit next to him. So I'm going to go and harvest some more so that I can feed the rabbit in this cage, and then the 2 that you see back there are in the neighboring cage. I'll have to have enough for them. If the 2 does were not nursing, they would not need as much as what I gave to them. So this bucket would probably have been enough to feed the 2 of them and these 2 rabbits here, this buck and this buck, and probably a little left over for the 2 that are over there. So I probably would have just needed, you know, maybe a 5-gallon bucket full to supplement what was in that bucket. So what types of things are okay to feed to your rabbits? I'm going to start in the garden because almost anything from the garden is going to be safe to feed to your rabbits. This chard is still good for humans, but it would be safe for the rabbits if I wanted to feed it to them. These turnip greens are just about spent. They are beyond what we would want to eat, but they are still fine to feed to the rabbits. There's nothing wrong with those. Carrot greens. Carrot greens are good to feed to the rabbits. These radishes are pretty much spent. I'm actually letting them go to flower on purpose so that I can harvest the seeds for them. But this is perfectly fine to feed to the rabbits. This bee balm can be fed to the rabbits. These peas could be fed to the rabbits. The leaves off of bean plants are okay for the rabbits. It's somewhat controversial about whether or not the beans themselves would be okay for the rabbits. It depends on who you ask, but the leaves are fine for sure. One thing that is not safe to be feeding to your rabbits are nightshades. So you do not want to feed tomato plants or pepper plants. The fruit is okay. The pepper you could feed, and the tomato you could feed. But the plants themselves are poisonous, and you would not want to feed any of the green parts to your rabbits. Any kind of squash is edible. The entire plant, the leaves, the flowers, the fruit, it's all edible for your rabbits. The same thing is true for sunflowers. The entire plant, the stem, the leaves, the flowers, even the roots would be fine to feed to the rabbits. So as you're going through your garden, trimming things up, pruning, pulling weeds, most things, with the exception of the nightshades, most things are going to be safe to feed to your rabbits. From your yard, clover is safe, both white and purple. Violets are safe, both the green parts and in the spring when they're blooming, the flowers are safe to feed to your rabbits. Just about any kind of grass. I'm not going to say any kind of grass because there may be some varieties that I'm not familiar with, but just about any type of grass is going to be safe to feed to your rabbits. Most herbs are going to be safe. This is catnip. It's from the mint family. Now with herbs, there may be some things that you don't want to feed to does in milk because, for example, anything from the mint family is going to limit and possibly reduce and dry up the milk from your doe while she is nursing. So avoid things from the mint family for nursing does, but otherwise does that are pregnant, dry does, bucks, young babies, all of them can eat it. The only thing that I would avoid, like I said, are nursing does. I wouldn't feed anything from the mint family. Thyme is safe for your rabbits. If you're thinning your strawberries, the strawberry plants are safe for rabbits. Same thing for rosemary and sage. Those flavors are a little strong and your rabbit may like them or they may not, but they are safe to be fed. Maple trees are safe to feed the leaves, the stems. All varieties of plantain. This is the broadleaf, but the narrow leaf plantain is also safe to feed. Roses are safe. All parts of the rose are safe. The stems, the leaves, the flowers, even the thorns, they don't bother them. Just put on some gloves while you trim this up and feed. Anything you cut off can be fed to your rabbits. Of course, dandelion is safe. All parts of the dandelion. Again, the stems, the leaves, the flowers, even the roots can be fed to your rabbits. Lamb's quarters are safe to feed to just about anything. Rabbits and people and chickens. These have a lot of nutrition in them, so these are an excellent thing that you could choose to feed to your rabbits if you're foraging. Honeysuckle is safe to feed to them. This is not in bloom because this is actually my neighbor's bush and he tried to cut it down. I'm not complaining about that in the least because it was a monster that could not be tamed. As you can see, he cut it down literally to a stump, and I have pulled this much growth off of it at least twice, maybe 3 times, and it has just come right back. I think my neighbor has pulled it off once also. So I don't know if this is ever going to die, but I'll just keep pulling the shoots off and feeding it to the rabbits because they like it and the chickens like it too. This is dock. This is safe to feed to your rabbits. If you get this in your yard, it's almost impossible to kill without an herbicide. I just try to keep it cut back and don't let it go to seed so that it won't spread, and it's safe to feed to the rabbits, so I just feed them as much as they want. One thing I have in my yard that not everyone is going to have, but if you do, then just know that it is safe to feed banana leaves to your rabbits. Now, a word of caution about things you might have in your yard that you should not feed to rabbits. A lot of ornamentals, like the Asiatic lilies, I haven't confirmed, but until I do, I don't feed those because I'm honestly not sure if those are safe to feed to rabbits or not. I have been reading up on wisteria, and apparently the flowers of wisteria, like specifically the petals of the flower, are safe, but most parts of the rest of wisteria are poisonous. So I won't be feeding this to anything, the rabbits or the chickens. And I'm debating on whether or not to cut the whole tree down and try to kill it. I haven't decided on that yet because I do love to see and smell the blooms in the spring, and I love them a lot, but it doesn't produce food, and it's such a pain to try and keep this monster maintained. So that is going to be all for today's video. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Don't forget to check out the description down below for links to all of our social media accounts. And if you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comments below because we do read every single one of them. Thanks for watching.